Hello, my name is Victor, and I am currently 31 years of age. But if I could time travel and speak to my 20-year-old self, here are 4 things that I would discuss as they were financial mistakes that I made along the way. Coming in at number 1, delaying gratification. Let me take you back to the early 2000s when I was a kid growing up in a Mexican American household. We didn't really have a lot of excess income, but what my parents did do a great job of was teaching us how money worked, and the way they did that was through an allowance. As a kid, I got $5 every single Sunday. And that was just enough money to go hit the arcade whenever we were in the mall. Yeah, people actually went to the mall back in the day. And if I had anything left over, I would just go over to the dollar store and buy myself some candy. As I got older though, that allowance went up to $10 per week. But instead of spending my money at the arcade or on candy, as a preteen teenager, the number one thing I wanted to always buy were video games. The only issue was video games at the time were $60 each. So I would have to wait 6 weeks, if not more, just to buy one game. The solution, of course, team up with your brother. He also would get $10 every single Sunday, so between the two of us, we were getting $20 a week. If we were good and saved that money, we could have a new game every 3 weeks. If not, at the very least, a new game every single month. Thanks to my parents and their allowance system, I was able to learn crucial habits of saving and delaying gratification. Because even as a kid, it made more sense to me to buy a video game that I could play non-stop whenever I wanted, instead of going to the arcade and being in there for what, an hour at most? But that's a lot easier said than done when you're in your 20s. Because during my early 20s, I was graduating university, I was starting my first real job, and I was buying my first car that was under my name. With everything going on, it can be really easy to fall into a pattern of thinking that goes something like this. I am making more money, so I can spend more money. But this leads me to number 2 in the video: always have more income than expenses. Okay, this one is not going to be a personal story of mine. It's actually from Greek mythology, and it is the story of Sisyphus. As the story goes, Sisyphus was a king who received an eternal punishment. I won't go into the details of why, how, or when, but all you need to know is that his punishment was to roll up a boulder up a steep hill, only for the boulder to end up rolling back down to the bottom right before he got to the top. He was then forced to start over again from the bottom for the rest of time. And this story really resonated with me in my early 20s because as I looked around, I started to learn that people were living paycheck to paycheck, and this story was a perfect analogy for that. The boulder is somebody's paycheck, because what I started to see as I looked around was that people would receive their paycheck, but spend it all before they received their next paycheck. Essentially starting from the bottom, or where they started from, before the end of every week. And it just never made any sense to me. Always, and I stress always, live below your means so that you have excess money at the end of every week, month, and so that you're building wealth year after year. Right on through to number 3, and that is peace of mind. And I am telling you right now, nothing has helped me sleep better at night than having 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund stashed away in a high-yield savings account. Trust me when I tell you, you are going to be able to make decisions better and quicker whenever you're not in a constant state of survival worrying about next week's bills. Plus, having savings in the bank is equal to having options in life. Do you hate your job? Well, good thing you have some money set aside while you look for something new. Did your car break down recently? Well, it's a good thing you have money in the bank so that you don't have to take out a loan or max out your credit card to get your car fixed. And your options are not just to avoid the negative aspects of life. Here's an alternative. What if you want to grow your money faster? Well, once I had my emergency fund set, I learned about number 4, which is think in terms of percentages, not linear amounts. And I've already made a video explaining how powerful compounding can be. I'll leave a tag up here or I'll leave a description for you in the video if you want to check it out. But needless to say, the number one takeaway from that video is that you are absolutely underestimating the power of compounding. But whenever making a decision, it's wise to consider not only the potential reward, but also potential risks as well. And here again, thinking in terms of percentages will save you time and time again. And here's an example to highlight my point. In this example, we're going to look at 2 people. Number 1 is going to be Risk It All Richard, and number 2 is Calculated Risk Carlos. In this example, both have invested $1,000 total, and let's say the absolute worst case scenario, they both lost their $1,000. The difference is, Risk It All Richard only had $1,000. He risked everything he had, and now he's stressing out because he has bills due, and he was counting on his investment to grow so that he could have some extra money. Calculated Risk Carlos, on the other hand, took into consideration the risk he was taking by investing and set aside 10% of his emergency fund that he was willing to invest with. So $1,000 being 10% of his total money means he had $10,000 in his emergency fund. And while yes, it is true, it is terrible that he lost his $1,000, at the very least, he can learn from this experience and try again. He still has $9,000 sitting in the bank after all. Everyone has a different risk tolerance, but remember, the biggest risk in life is to take no risk at all. If you learned anything in the video, be sure to give me a like, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.